In 1862 Missouri, a small town nestled within the rolling hills and sprawling fields, 15-year-old Juliana Bell awoke each morning to the pale light filtering through her window. These mornings were marked by a distinct routine that carried both a weight and a rhythm, one filled with tasks that reminded her of her lost childhood. With every stretch of her limbs, she felt the sharp tug of memories that lingered like smoke in the air, remnants of a tragic night. Juliana's reflection in the worn glass was an unsettling sight. The scars covering half her face told a story of destruction but also of survival. Once bright and full of promise, her skin was now marred, the flesh forever changed by fire. She remembered vividly how it had felt, the heat rushing around her as she escaped from their burning home, the screams of terror ringing in her ears as she fought to save herself. That night had stolen away not only her parents, but also the girl she used to be, the one who laughed freely and played without fear. The townsfolk had not forgotten that fire, nor had they been kind in their remembrances. They whispered behind closed doors, their voices thick with judgment and pity. "Look at the ash girl," they murmured whenever they caught a glimpse of her in her worn dress, busy at market or tending to chores. Juliana tried to ignore them. She knew it was easier said than done. Their eyes carried disdain, mixed with a smattering of fear, as if they believed that somehow the ashes from her past could spread to them. The loneliness was suffocating at times. Juliana yearned for companionship, for someone to notice more than just the scars on her face. While most young women in town received attention from hopeful suitors, Juliana found herself isolated, often left by herself while friends reveled in flirtation and light-hearted teasing. She sat on the sidelines, watching couples dance at fairs or share laughter over lemonade. It hurt in ways she struggled to articulate, a bruising against her spirit that ignited old wounds. Despite this pain, Juliana's heart remained tender amidst the jadedness surrounding her existence. Each day brought new challenges as she helped in the family shop, an inheritance from her parents that now served as a reminder of everything she had lost. The small counter creaked under the weight of goods displayed for sale, jars filled with pickles and preserves lovingly crafted by her mother's hands before that fateful night. One summer afternoon, while arranging freshly baked bread on shelves, the monotone push and pull of life shifted dramatically. That's when Tobias Rourke arrived in town. He moved with an air about him that drew attention like moths to flames. His mysterious presence captured whispers even before he introduced himself. A blind gunslinger wandering through their streets sent shivers down many spines. However, it was his request for directions amid townsfolk set on gossiping about him that intrigued Juliana most. "May I have your guidance?" His voice carried an unyielding calmness as he approached Juliana at her stall, where she nervously tucked loose strands of hair behind one ear. "I need to find my way to meet someone." Juliana glanced around nervously. Others turned away out of fabricated politeness despite their curiosity peeking through very visible cracks, a testament to how ingrained judgment had become within their lives. "What do you want with me?" Her inquiry trembled slightly but pushed itself outward, sullied words tumbling forth despite any reservations jangling inside. "Just assistance," he replied softly but surely with wisdom belying his age, a bold resonance she hadn't expected from anyone outside herself. Questions circled like storm clouds above. Did he see her scars too? Did they stir pity within him? Unable to fathom why someone so intriguing would choose to reach out across barriers no one else dared venture near stirred self-doubt deep inside Juliana's heart. Yet something in his confidence fueled courage into hers. She stepped forward, tentatively leading way through crowded thoroughfares while grappling tightly between fears and guarded hope. As they ambled along streets filled with chattering markets evoking nothing but fading sounds reaching up toward rooftops high above. Each step brought unforeseen clarity into focus whenever Tobias gave grace-filled glances towards shadows welcomed under eclipsed streets below them. In those moments alongside him, something powerful shifted. Amidst shared glances cloaked together dimly mixed within sun-kissed lanes. A flicker ignited inside Juliana's heart, forcing boundaries once thought unbreakable crumbling ever closer into shards now revealed glimmering just beneath surface. As days turned into weeks, the whispers of the townsfolk continued to echo in Juliana's ears. The nickname Ash Girl weighed heavily on her heart, a moniker that reminded her not only of her scars but also of the way people viewed her as a ghost of her former self. Each time she stepped outside her modest house, dressed in well-worn clothes that seemed to blend into the very landscape of her misery, she felt the weight of their gazes upon her. Sometimes they were filled with pity, and other times, with something far worse, fear. In town, where gossip flowed like the creek that wound through the fields, Juliana could hardly go about her daily chores without encountering cruel remarks floated between neighbors. While others admired their children for their beauty and grace, Juliana could only absorb their disdain. "What a shame," they'd murmur, eyes flicking away as if viewing her was too painful, a constant reminder of what had been lost. She caught snippets of conversations about how no man would dare pursue the girl marked by fire. Each word stung deeper than any scar. Juliana tried to find solace in her work, helping out at her family's shop, which had become both a refuge and a reminder of loss. Behind the counter filled with jars of preserves and baked goods where customers browsed, she often put on a brave face. But the loneliness seeped through every interaction. Customers would shift uncomfortably when she greeted them, their eyes drifting quickly away from hers, focusing instead on anything but the girl whose past haunted her. All too often, they clutched their children close when they came near, as if the shadows of Juliana's experiences could leap out and consume them too. While many young women dreamed of suitors presenting flowers or sharing laughter at dances held under the stars, those dreams felt far beyond Juliana's reach. With each passing moment spent observing couples stealing glances or whispering sweet promises to one another at local gatherings, she felt increasingly invisible. Her friends became distant figures within this tapestry of happiness, a vibrant world from which she felt excluded. Juliana's heart ached with a longing for companionship that seemed forever elusive. When she overheard charming banter or joyous laughter wafting toward her like music on the breeze, while sitting alone on the edges of festivities, it twisted something deep within her chest, a bittersweet pang that echoed loneliness louder than any spoken words could capture. At times, desperation crept into her thoughts as she wondered if anyone would ever look beyond the scars to see who she truly was inside. Would they find kindness rather than fear? Would they see strength instead of weakness? The questions haunted her days like restless phantom figures drifting just beyond her grasp. Every day brought challenges, moments when standing at the counter felt suffocating as emotions surged beneath the surface. How much longer could she endure being known only for her burned skin? The thought chased away sleep at night as she lay still on an unyielding mattress beneath frayed blankets. Still maintaining some semblance of hope amidst despair turned out to be particularly difficult during market days when families and friends gathered in lively chatter while Juliana stood quietly amongst them as they milled around searching for goods, avoiding eye contact or hurriedly buying whatever items gripped their fancy before moving along to brighter destinations away from hers. Yet even during these moments, small acts demonstrated how brave souls could shine through darkness. Occasionally a child might approach tentatively, curious yet cautious, asking about what was in jars labeled magic pickles, or giggling over bread shaped like animals and smiling brightly before running back into safety among groups. Those brief interactions sparked light inside Juliana's heart despite herself. They fueled flickers of happiness against shadows lurking below, a small reminder that some found richness not in looks but through joy found in shared experiences. Then there were nights spent staring up at endless stars blanketing the sky where all softened into tranquil silhouettes. It was in those quiet moments under darkness that she resolved to face every cruel remark head-on with dignity intact, taking each insult directed towards Ashgirl as fuel for resilience woven deep within even if memories from that fateful night haunted every breath drawn thereafter. Perhaps one day someone might choose not just to see scars but rather glimpse deeper, the person behind layers hardened by loss, finding both joy and acceptance blooming quietly amidst chaos all around them. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows over the dusty streets of the small Missouri town as whispers of anticipation filled the air. It was an ordinary day that would soon take an extraordinary turn with the arrival of a figure who stirred curiosity and apprehension alike, Tobias Rourke, a blind gunslinger with an air of mystery surrounding him. When Tobias stepped into town, he moved with a steady confidence that belied his lack of sight. A well-worn duster flapped gently around his legs, and the sound of his boots striking the ground resonated like a heartbeat in the quiet streets. He carried himself not as someone lost or helpless, but as if he held a secret power, one that intrigued Juliana from the moment she noticed him standing at the edge of the marketplace. As she arranged jars of preserves, her gaze flickered toward him. He stood still for a moment, head tilted slightly as though listening to the murmurs swirling around him. The townsfolk watched him intently, their eyes wide with curiosity and trepidation. The tales they had heard of this stranger, a man skilled with a gun despite being blind, had spread like wildfire. Some whispered that he had come to collect a debt for a friend. Others speculated about darker reasons for his presence. Juliana's heart raced with both fear and intrigue. She had always been drawn to stories of adventure, the kind that promised escape from her own grim reality, but this was different. This man seemed untouched by the judgments that plagued her daily existence. The way he moved through the crowd, unfazed by their stares and hushed comments, captivated her. It wasn't long before their paths crossed directly. As she tried to focus on her work, she felt Tobias approach her stall. "May I have your guidance?" he asked, his voice smooth yet firm, cutting through the din surrounding them like a warm breeze on a cold day. Her stomach fluttered at the request. "What do you need?" she managed to ask, trying to keep her voice steady while hiding the fact that every fiber of her being was now on high alert. "I need to find someone," he replied simply, tilting his head as if sensing more than just physical directions. There was something compelling about him, an inviting presence that made her feel momentarily seen beyond her scars. "I can help you," Juliana said cautiously, taking a step forward as she fought against her instinct to retreat into herself. She couldn't help but wonder why he had chosen her out of all those present. After all, did he know what they called her? Together they walked through the bustling market, navigating between stalls filled with vibrant produce and handmade goods. As they moved along, Tobias's cane tapped rhythmically against the ground, a soothing sound amid the chaos around them. Juliana spoke softly about landmarks and shops while stealing glances at his profile, strong features lined with determination and wisdom beyond his years. "Thank you," he said suddenly, breaking through her thoughts. "You have a gentle way about you." His compliment caught her off guard. For so long, all she had heard were hurtful words echoing in her mind. It felt strange to receive kindness instead. "I'm just doing what I can." She hesitated before asking, "Do you really not care about my scars?" He paused for a moment before responding, "Why should I? They tell only part of your story." His words hung in the air between them like an unbroken thread connecting two souls destined to meet. Juliana felt warmth bloom inside her chest at his unexpected honesty. No one had ever spoken to her in such a way. No one had dared look past what lay on the surface before. It was refreshing yet frightening. For years she had concealed herself behind walls built from pain and rejection. As they continued walking together through streets alive with chatter and laughter from families enjoying their evening together, Juliana felt something shift within herself, a crack forming in layers erected by loneliness and despair. Tobias asked questions about life in town, what it was like living under judgment, and each answer opened new doors within their conversation. With each word shared under fading sunlight, she found herself unraveling threads woven tightly around fears that had bound her for far too long. But it wasn't just companionship blossoming between them. Danger loomed nearby too. A shadow creeping slowly behind Tobias's arrival that neither of them could quite see yet felt deeply entrenched in every interaction shared among townsfolk, now growing wary amidst whispered warnings flitting through alleys. And so began an unlikely bond forged amid uncertainty, where light began fighting back against darkness lurking just outside their fragile world. As Juliana stood at her stall, organizing jars of pickles and preserves, the buzz of the market faded into a low hum around her. She couldn't shake the feeling of being a ghost drifting through a world that barely acknowledged her presence. The arrival of Tobias Rourke disrupted that numbness, drawing her attention away from her daily routine and toward the unknown. He approached with an air of quiet confidence, his cane tapping rhythmically against the cobblestones, each sound echoing like a heartbeat. As she watched him, her heart raced, a mixture of curiosity and apprehension washed over her. This blind gunslinger had entered their small town as if he owned it, oblivious to the whispers trailing in his wake. His gait spoke volumes. He did not stumble or hesitate as others might expect of someone in his condition. "May I have your guidance?" he asked when he reached her stall, his voice steady and deep. The words pierced through the mundane chatter surrounding them, enveloping Juliana in a moment that felt both thrilling and terrifying. She hesitated, taken aback by his directness. Was it pity that led him to her? A girl marked by scars, ensnared in a web of judgment? "What do you need?" she managed to ask, keeping her tone as even as possible despite the fluttering in her stomach. "I need to find someone," he replied simply, tilting his head slightly as if striving to catch the echoes of distant voices or footsteps, an innate ability born from necessity rather than sight. Juliana swallowed hard, a tangle of emotions swirling within her. Part of her wanted to recoil and retreat back into the safety of anonymity, but something else compelled her to step closer to him. Perhaps it was the intrigue that surrounded this stranger, or maybe it was a longing for connection that outweighed her fears. "I can help you," she finally said, pushing aside the doubts that threatened to consume her. What did it matter if you chose her out of compassion? Guided by an unseen force stronger than mere obligation, she took a tentative step forward. Together they began walking through the bustling market streets, navigating among stalls brimming with colorful fruits and handmade crafts. As they moved together, Juliana's initial instincts battled within her. Was he truly interested in finding someone, or merely fulfilling some misguided sense of duty toward the Ash Girl? With each mention of landmark or shop, she glanced sideways at Tobias's profile. Even though he could not see her scars, she felt exposed nonetheless, uncomfortable under the weight of revealed vulnerability. Her heart pounded harder as they walked past familiar faces. She'd grown accustomed to their sideways glances and hushed whispers about who she was or what had happened. "You have a gentle way about you." Tobias's compliment hit like a warm breeze cutting through winter's chill, startling Juliana out of her thoughts. It was so unexpected coming from him that she had no idea how to respond. "I'm just doing what I can," she stammered, unsure whether his words were genuine or simply polite. "You're too modest," he replied with surprising insight. "People can be cruel without understanding." In that moment, a wave of gratitude washed over Juliana. Here was someone who recognized not just what lay on the surface but understood that there were depths beneath, layers hidden from view due to fear and rejection. Yet still, insecurity gnawed at her mind like a persistent ache. Did he really mean what he said? Would anyone ever look beyond skin deep into who she might be underneath? The conversation flowed as they traversed through wedged pathways lined with laughter and chatter, their mere presence shifting something within Juliana's chest, subtly stirring hope above despair, still casting shadows over everything else. "What is life like here?" Tobias asked softly as they paused near a vendor selling bright flowers. Colors swayed gently under market breezes, offering glimpses of vibrant beauty surrounding them both, but only if one dared look closely beyond what first met the eye. Juliana took a breath before answering. Somehow discussing mundane details about life felt both freeing yet confining too. It was hard not to think about how much hatred flitted beneath its daily routines. The hurtful names called out followed quickly by giggles quickly dissipating, as if reading an unwritten script all too familiar. Yet somehow talking with him made it easier, opening up tales about families gathering during harvest festivals while breathing life into small stories could spark flickers illuminating dim corners where darkness lingered only before. But danger lurked nearby too. She sensed it hanging like thick fog around Tobias's presence. Though neither acknowledged, names etched deeply into space between breaths exchanged commenced filling voids arising once filled solely by loneliness prior. What began as just two strangers caught between an exchange turned into something far more than mere direction offered themselves toward unknown paths forged ahead. Uncertainty loomed like scattered leaves caught upon uncertain winds, tossing cracks wider through layers once thought impenetrable. As Juliana and Tobias continued to walk through the market, a sense of ease settled between them, punctuated by laughter and chatter from the stalls surrounding them. Tobias asked about the various goods on display, their colors, shapes, and scents, and Juliana found herself explaining the buzzing life of the town with a proud warmth she hadn't felt in a long time. Yet amid these conversations, she still held back the weight of her insecurities, unsure if Tobias would remain interested once he learned more about her past. They wandered past a booth selling fresh pies when Juliana caught sight of an old man who often frequented the market. He had been one of the loudest voices echoing judgments about her scars. His taunts about the poor girl who was burned still rang sharply in her mind. She shifted slightly, suddenly self-conscious, fearing that Tobias might notice her discomfort. "What's wrong?" he asked, tilting his head as if he could read her thoughts. Juliana hesitated but then decided to speak. Sometimes I wonder what people think when they see me." She let out a shaky breath. "You know, like how they call me Ash Girl." At that, she felt vulnerable again. The protective layers she had built were at risk of unraveling in front of them. Instead of recoiling or changing the subject, however, Tobias's response surprised her. "I've heard the whispers," he said quietly, his expression steady but contemplative. "I know they say hurtful things. Most don't understand how deep those wounds can go." His words hung in the air between them like a fragile thread, connecting their own stories of pain. Juliana's heart raced as realization struck her. Tobias didn't just move through life blindly. He possessed an awareness that seemed unshaken by conventional barriers. Here was a man who knew every insult hurled at her and still chose to walk beside her willingly. "Why do you care?" she asked, narrowing her eyes as curiosity mingled with doubt. "It must be easier to ignore me." "With all conviction," he replied, "because I see strength in you that those people cannot comprehend. The scars are merely evidence of survival. They don't define who you are." A confusing mix of gratitude and disbelief washed over Juliana at his words. No one had ever spoken to her so openly or dared to address those painful truths directly before. Her past held heavy chains around her heart, and yet Tobias approached it without fear, offering understanding instead. "I watch people," he continued thoughtfully as they moved away from unfriendly faces lingering nearby who were busy eyeing both of them suspiciously before returning their conversations to bitter murmurs behind closed lips. Sometimes it takes losing something precious to appreciate what is left. As they strolled along cobbled paths lined with vibrant flowers swaying in soft breezes under midday sunbeams brightening their world more than usual, the atmosphere transformed as layers peeled away from Juliana's protective shell. The sounds around them fell quiet until only their voices remained. Each held shimmering pieces reflecting vulnerability, reciprocated mutual trust. "People forget how important it is to connect," she responded softly, feeling emboldened by his steadfastness despite fear still fluttering within her chest. A gentle reminder that something beautiful sometimes lay hidden amidst darkness steeped profoundly deep. "Or maybe," Tobias added with a slight smile forming upon his lips, "they fear that connection's potential for deeper pain." Juliana nodded slowly. It was true. The thought struck home harder than expected. Perhaps that was why she had distanced herself all these years while encasing herself within walls more fortified than any fortress could hope to build against cruelty inflicted from outside worlds too often deemed harsh toward those who bore visible scars, and perhaps deep down housed their own bruises hidden beneath outer facades meant solely for protection. Yet it was precisely that shared understanding which began unveiling glimmers amidst murky depths, starting flickering slowly into light like stars piercing through dark skies. Revealing paths once feared now beckoning forward toward uncertain horizons, not only holding possibility but embracing healing too, as hands gripped beneath, hopes soaring ever higher, unfurling together amidst shaken breaths exchanged along threads connecting them, frail, yet tenacious, stubborn towards rebuilding futures anew, where fears could dwell less heavily. Only time would tell how they might shape this connection further, in an unpredictable dance woven together. Each step leading closer toward acceptance while fighting shadows lingering near edges untouched, guiding each moment fuller with every word spoken sweetly, shared hidden truths acknowledged, reshaping possibilities blossoming gently beneath sun-filled skies swaying above them too. As days turned into weeks, the bond between Juliana and Tobias deepened beneath the sunlit skies of Missouri. Their encounters became more frequent, starting with small exchanges at the market and gradually evolving into longer walks where they shared stories, dreams, and fears. With every moment spent together, Juliana felt a flicker of warmth, a sensation she hadn't known in years. One afternoon, while wandering along a shaded path lined with tall grass and wildflowers, they stumbled across a small creek bubbling with life. The sound of water dancing over stones was intoxicating, and for Juliana, it was a welcome distraction from the doubts that often clouded her thoughts. "Let's take a break here," she suggested, her heart racing with the thrill of simply being able to enjoy this beautiful moment alongside Tobias. They sat on a grassy bank, and as Juliana dipped her fingers into the cool water, she felt as if the burdens carried for so long were finally beginning to lift. Tobias listened intently as she spoke of her childhood, the laughter shared with her parents before everything changed. "I used to love coming here to catch fireflies in the summer," she recalled, a smile creeping onto her face as memories flooded back. "It felt magical." Tobias smiled knowingly. "Magic exists in the simplest moments," he said softly. "Sometimes we just need to look for it." His words wrapped around her like a comforting blanket, urging her to share more. As days passed, Juliana found herself opening up to him, sharing her insecurities about being labeled Ash Girl, and how that name had haunted her since childhood. "I feel like I'm locked away behind my scars," she confessed one evening as they watched the sun dip below the horizon. "No one sees me for who I truly am." Tobias turned towards her, his expression serious yet gentle. "You are so much more than what they call you," he said firmly. "Your scars tell a story of survival and strength, stories that many can only dream of having lived." His words struck a chord deep within her, resonating with a truth she had long been denied. With each conversation, Tobias shattered the walls Juliana had built around herself. He taught her how to view her scars not as symbols of shame, but rather as badges of resilience, a reminder of battles fought and won. They spent hours talking about their dreams. Tobias shared tales of adventures he had embarked upon before losing his sight, while Juliana spoke of aspirations to help others understand that beauty could be found even in imperfection. One day, while exploring the woods surrounding the town, they discovered an old tree adorned with vibrant blossoms. The colors reminded Juliana of her mother's garden, the very same garden that had once bloomed with life before tragedy struck. She gazed at the flowers, feeling both joy and sorrow intertwined within her heart when Tobias gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "It's okay to feel both," he reassured her, sensing her turmoil. "What mattered most is how you choose to carry those feelings forward." His understanding looked past the surface. He effortlessly unearthed emotions she had buried deep. Feeling inspired by his words, Juliana turned to him. "How do you manage to see so clearly when you can't see at all?" she asked, voice tinged with admiration. Tobias chuckled lightly. "I see with my heart," he replied confidently, "and I listen closely to those around me." His sincerity radiated from him and enveloped Juliana in warmth. It was no longer just pity that drew him to her. It was a genuine connection rooted in mutual understanding. Their friendship blossomed further as they found comfort in silence during shared moments, sitting by the creek or leaning against trees while listening to nature breathe around them. Each encounter diminished her feelings of worthlessness piece by piece until hope began to fill the cracks left behind. The townsfolk still whispered their judgments, but now those words held far less power over Juliana's spirit when she was with Tobias by her side. He helped reshape how she viewed herself, reminding her that true worth radiated from within and had nothing to do with appearances. As they navigated through crowded streets filled with whispers and glances, Juliana felt lighter than ever before. She no longer feared judgment quite as intensely because she knew someone who saw beyond the scars into the heart underneath. A heart that dared to hope and dream. Days turned into cherished memories that tethered them closer together. Each shared laugh or thought exchanged solidified their bond further amidst threads woven tightly connecting two souls seeking understanding in this unpredictable world around them, where shadows still lingered yet didn't feel nearly so daunting when illuminated by friendship's gentle light. As Juliana and Tobias continued to nurture their growing friendship, a sense of peace enveloped the ordinary moments they shared. However, beneath the surface of their idyllic connection lay an undercurrent of danger, shadows lurking just beyond the edges of their newfound happiness. The town buzzed with speculation, and whispers began to swell around Tobias like a dark cloud, warnings about who he once was, gathering momentum as memories of old debts resurfaced. One evening, as the sun set behind distant hills painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, they settled by the creek where joyous laughter had once held dominion over their hearts. They spoke easily, discussing dreams shaped by their pasts, until the tranquility was interrupted by a sudden rustling in the nearby bushes. Juliana's heart raced as she turned toward the sound. "What was that?" she asked, her voice tinged with unease. "Just the wind," Tobias replied calmly, though a shadow seemed to cross his otherwise confident demeanor. But within her gut nagged a sense that he sensed something amiss. Days passed without incident after that night, yet an uneasy feeling settled over Juliana. A cloud loomed darkly over her thoughts. How could things remain so perfect when Tobias had a past that might catch up with him? During one stroll through town one afternoon, they encountered a group gathered near the saloon. Men were drinking and exchanging casual bets while others paced restlessly along wooden sidewalks. She felt Tobias tense beside her, a shift of energy that sent chills through her skin. "What is it?" she asked quietly. "Someone's looking for me," he replied softly but with resolute determination as his cane tapped rhythmically against the floorboards. Juliana's stomach dropped at those words. Unease thrummed in tandem with fear. "Who?" He didn't answer immediately, but instead brought his focus outward to scan their surroundings even though his eyes remained unseeing. Before she could inquire further, a rough voice called out from among the men gathered nearby. "Hey, Rourke." It sliced through the murmur of voices like thunder striking unexpectedly on a clear day. The group parted slightly for a burly man stepping forward, a no-nonsense figure whose eyes glinted with malice underneath heavy brows. Although Juliana couldn't see Tobias's face clearly, she felt his body stiffen alongside hers as recognition dawned in his eyes. "Looks like you've gotten lost." The man grinned widely, but there was no warmth behind it, only menace cloaked in bravado. Juliana instinctively stepped closer to Tobias, but was met with his reassuring grip on her arm, as if he were trying to steady both them and himself amidst brewing tension lingering thick like smoke. "I'm not lost," Tobias retorted calmly without backing down despite mounting friction in this unexpected confrontation. "I've moved on." The other man's laughter rang out harshly. It rolled through Juliana's ears like rolling thunder announcing an impending storm. "You think you can just run away from what you owe?" He paused dramatically as if savoring every word spoken next. "I'll be sure to remind you." Fear constricted around Juliana's chest as she absorbed these words. Danger hung heavily between them now. The weight unbearable yet palpable, shifting air charged with anxiety crackling through invisible lines binding them directly together against impending chaos swirling nearby uninvited. "I don't want trouble," Tobias said firmly, yet firmly resolved. However, impatience dripped from the lips surrounding them. A sharp reminder lingering therein too felt deeply woven across fabric, making up wary connections now struggling beneath shared breaths exchanged frantically, wondering who might approach next, threatening anew. What delicately forged bonds remained hardly intact within touch, reaching further than before. "Stay close," he directed quietly toward her amid surging emotions, threatening edges creeping closer into light-obscuring shadows surrounding potential foes drawn near unwillingly, facing off against looming danger poised precariously above uncertain ground. Disarray now befell them both, tainting joy washed tastefully enjoyed when daylight broke upon laughter so freely shared just moments beforehand. But care didn't feel far beyond reach, still needing vigilance. Framing Titan's measured steps stumbled back toward origin, sought again, now diminishing backward, each swirl sending waves crashing down behind, hurried heels pounding softly, grasping hands joined closely together. Despite perils known only, reliance held, whether grasped securely bound or slipping upstream, fears wanting, distances crossed, back grasped gently filled, firmly still longing, chains lifted, fly remaining, half-broken hearts cried out seeking stronger bonds. But suddenly fickle fate harbored something more severe, lurking ever close, seeking opportunity, shattering borders built carefully between loneliness foremost felt only moments before. Only time would reveal how well they would navigate what increasingly threatened, drawing nearer each day. Slowly hardened fragile ties woven anew, risking tender connections formed, beginning newly flowering within uncertainty, would yield strength capable enough crafting possibilities blossoming again, experienced longevity, forged paths illuminated brightly, leading where shadows bent gently, meeting sunlight glimmering, promising hope, illuminating futures uncharted ahead, waiting just beyond open doors left ajar, beckoning, always calling, strong steadied hearts, brave adventures dared imagine ahead, why battling fought, carried forward amid unfolding dreams, bold embarking, chasing freedom, journey unknown filled richly forever onward. As the days followed the confrontation with Tobias's past, Juliana felt a shift deep within her heart. The weight of fear and uncertainty hung in the air, but it was accompanied by a flicker of hope. Tobias's presence had awakened something inside her that she had thought lost forever. She began to reflect on their conversations, particularly how Tobias spoke of her scars not as flaws, but as evidence of her resilience, stories etched in flesh. On one sunny afternoon, they met at their usual spot by the creek, the sounds of water dancing over rocks creating a soothing backdrop for their discussions. Juliana arrived early, gathering her thoughts. With the sunlight filtering through the leaves above and casting playful patterns on the ground, she realized she wanted to express what had been growing inside her since they began walking together. As Tobias approached, his cane tapping rhythmically against the earth, she noticed an unusual sense of excitement bubbling within her. After exchanging greetings and settling onto the grassy bank, Juliana took a deep breath before speaking up. "Tobias," she started hesitantly, "you know how you said my scars tell a story? I've been thinking about that." His brow furrowed slightly. He leaned in as if he could sense the importance of her words. "What about them?" "I think I'm beginning to understand what you meant." She paused to find clarity in her thoughts. "For so long, I've seen them only as reminders of pain, the fire that took everything from me. But now, I wonder if they could also be something more." Tobias remained silent for a moment. His expression shifted into one of gentle encouragement as he nodded for her to continue. "I want to believe that these scars can be symbols of strength," she confessed, feeling vulnerable yet emboldened. "Maybe they show that I survived when others didn't." A smile broke over Tobias's face, one filled with warmth and pride that made her heart expand just a little more. "That's exactly it," he affirmed softly. "You survived. Not everyone can claim such bravery. Juliana's breaths came easier now, with each word exchanged between them blossoming forth like spring flowers breaking through winter's chill. She felt shackles begin to loosen around her heart. "Do you really see me this way?" she asked suddenly, searching for confirmation from someone who seemed to understand her deeper than most ever had. "Of course," he replied confidently. "You have such strength within you. It's much brighter than any shadow cast by your past." His words ignited something within her, a kindling of self-worth that swelled inside until it threatened to overflow. It was one thing to feel seen by someone who didn't judge based on appearances, and entirely another to recognize value in herself through his eyes. From that day forward, Juliana embraced new possibilities with open arms instead of clinging tightly to old fears and insecurities. Every quiet moment spent alongside Tobias sparked curiosity about who she truly wanted to become, not just the girl known as Ash Girl, but someone capable of transforming hurt into healing. She began sharing dreams more freely, how she wanted to help others like herself find beauty amid pain, or open a small shop where kindness thrived alongside goods crafted with care, the very things that reminded families of brighter days ahead. One afternoon at the market stall filled with colorful fabrics and handmade treasures offered by local artisans, Juliana felt emboldened enough to decorate their humble corner with vibrant blooms freshly picked from gardens nearby. For too long, she'd avoided calling attention towards herself. Now she found pleasure in colors splashing across surface forms, igniting joy captured within sunshine each flower emitted onto welcoming floral arrangements. Yet even amid jubilation soared between friends, experienced cherished moments shared together. The undercurrent tainted memories still lingered beyond horizons seemingly closed off tightly when life burdened young spirits unaware, facing decisions extending doubts deeply rooted throughout, fragile stories shared willingly, unearthing hidden gems buried beneath life's harshest landscapes, traversed far ahead toward common destinies, welcomed unexpectedly, unfolding fearlessly, bright framed forever. Rebuilding futures gleaming brightly outlined against uncertainties, flourishing continually along new adventures, whispered sweetly, uncoiling vibrant fates dared, uncovered boldly, lifting head boldly upward, seeking light, shining evermore. The world outside remained daunting still. Darkness would always linger. But now it didn't overshadow hope, tethered firmly ever upward, drawing breath from hearts courageous enough dream onward, steadfastly soaring higher, searching endlessly, discovering horizons extending, reaching far beyond. The atmosphere in the small Missouri town had shifted. Tension hung thick in the air after Tobias's confrontation with his past. Juliana felt the weight of fear pressing down on her, a familiar sensation that threatened to pull her back into the shadows she had just begun to escape. She stood at the edge of the fading light, her heart pounding in her chest as she contemplated what lay ahead. Determined not to let fear dictate her actions, Juliana decided to confront this external threat head-on. The sun dipped low in the sky, casting long shadows across the ground as she made her way through the town, tension coursing through her veins with every step. She could feel the weight of disapproving eyes upon her as whispers followed like ghosts, but she focused instead on the strength that had bloomed within her since meeting Tobias. She found him seated on a bench near the creek where they often talked. His posture was tense, cane resting beside him as he listened to the sounds of nature, the gentle rustle of leaves and the distant chirping of crickets providing a calming backdrop. Juliana approached cautiously, feeling both anxious and resolute. "Tobias," she began, her voice steady despite the turmoil swirling inside her. "I think we need to talk about what happened earlier." He turned his head slightly toward her, his expression a mix of concern and curiosity. "What's on your mind? I know your past is catching up with you," she said carefully, choosing each word with intention. "But I can't let it overshadow what we've built together. I've started to see my own worth because of you." Tobias raised an eyebrow, intrigued but still guarded. "You are stronger than you know, Juliana. But this is different. You don't have to fight my battles. I want to fight alongside you." Her voice grew firmer as she stepped closer to him. "I'm tired of hiding from the shadows that follow me." A flicker of admiration crossed Tobias's face before it was replaced by a somber expression. "It's not just about us," he replied slowly. "There are consequences beyond what we might expect." "Maybe so," Juliana agreed, stepping nearer still. "But hiding won't protect us either. I'd rather stand with you, facing whatever comes our way." As they spoke, A group of men approached from down the path, rowdy and careless laughter echoing against wooden walls that framed their surroundings like ominous sentinels. The burly man from before was among them, his presence evoking a sense of dread that tightened around Juliana's chest. "Look who it is," he called out mockingly, eyes glinting with malice as he spotted Tobias. "Back for more." Juliana felt Tobias tense beside her, his cane clutched tightly in his grip as if bracing for impact. She could sense fear creeping into his demeanor, fear for her safety and his own, and it fueled something fierce within her. "Leave him alone," she shouted suddenly, surprising even herself with the ferocity in her voice. The laughter died down momentarily as all eyes turned toward her, confusion mingling with disbelief on their faces. "What did you say?" sneered one of the men behind the burly figure. "You heard me," Juliana replied defiantly, standing tall despite every voice in her head urging retreat from danger looming just above their heads like storm clouds ready to unleash fury upon them both if they dared cross paths further forward. Tobias glanced at her with astonishment. He clearly hadn't expected such courage from her in this moment, but there was strength building within Juliana that felt unlike anything she had experienced before. An anchor tethered deep beneath, waves crashing fiercely all around them, now encroaching upon lives lived freely once. "Is this really how you want to carry on?" she challenged boldly. "By bullying someone who has already fought their battles? I refuse to let you intimidate us any longer." The air crackled with tension. It was uncertain how they would respond. Would they retaliate against a girl marked by scars? Or would they reconsider their path? The burly man took a step forward, but before he could speak again, Tobias intervened, his voice steady and commanding despite being blind. "She's right." Confusion mixed with anger washed over their faces, their bravado faltering under unexpected unity forged between two unlikely allies standing firm against adversity threatening close connection newly formed shared each battle fought together inside they would confront beyond darkness looming ever-present outside. From that moment onward, Juliana felt emboldened. It was no longer just about facing external threats, but confronting insecurities rooted deep within herself too. The very fears that had once held her back transformed into fuel propelling forward toward futures brightened anew, illuminated alongside friendships cultivated against all odds, where hopes soared endlessly forever onward, searching brightly beckoning horizons. Uncharted, still waiting, patiently inviting journeys shared together. In those moments filled tightly woven together, she knew there would be challenges ahead. Yet now it didn't matter nearly so deeply how darkly shadows lingered, for they stood together steadfast, hearts brave enough, seeking light, shining ever more, illuminating paths where dreams dared flourish anew, undeterred by doubts, fought bravely onward. The confrontation lingered in the air even as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the town. In the wake of their standoff with the men from Tobias's past, a sense of calm began to settle in, yet uncertainty still hung like a thin mist. Juliana took a deep breath as she and Tobias stood together on the edge of the creek, where gentle ripples flowed as freely as they hoped for their futures. "Did you mean what you said back there?" Tobias broke the silence, his voice steady but filled with an intoxicating blend of curiosity and vulnerability. "I did," Juliana replied, feeling emboldened under the gaze of his trusting expression. "You don't need to fight your battles alone. I'm here now. We can face whatever comes our way together." A soft smile graced Tobias's face, illuminating his features in the fading light. "You stood up to them," he mused. "That took real bravery." Her heart swelled at his words. For far too long, Juliana had defined herself by her scars, marked by sorrow, judged by those around her. But with each encounter shared with Tobias, every fleeting moment and heartfelt conversation had helped her see her true self emerge from beneath layers of pain and fear. As they walked back toward town hand in hand, she realized that for every sneering glance cast their way, there was a strength igniting between them, a bond built on mutual understanding and shared struggles. The support she felt from Tobias encouraged Juliana to embrace not only him, but also herself completely. She aimed to take decisive steps forward instead of allowing shadows to dictate her value any longer. Finally reaching the marketplace, the energy buzzed differently than before. Townsfolk whispered and turned their heads curiously at their united presence. No longer could they label her simply as Ash Girl. With each sounding footfall down cobblestone streets together, she felt recognized, not just as an outsider, but as someone worthy whom another acknowledged wholeheartedly. Juliana scanned familiar faces as they passed. Some bore expressions of disbelief or disdain, while others appeared caught off guard by this new determination radiating from her. And yet amidst it all stood Tobias, fortified beside her like an unwavering shield. A reminder that empathy often created deeper visibility, stronger than mere appearances alone could achieve. At that moment, she knew a change had occurred, not only within herself but for others watching closely too. A shift that hinted at acceptance blooming softly within those once hardened walls surrounding familiar places woven tightly into everyday lives spent lost within anonymity drowned filled crackling whispers. As they approached a booth selling vibrant flowers, Juliana spotted a bouquet bursting with colors reminiscent of springtime, the very flowers she used to seek out during happier days spent with her mother before tragedy fell upon their family, and felt compelled toward it, unexpectedly engaging gently warm laughter from neighboring adults who observed interesting sights, alongside eager children running about scatter, occasionally tossing petals onto kissing air. "I'll buy these," she declared boldly, rather unexpectedly, then stepped up to purchase the bouquet without hesitation, adorned charmingly wrapped pull-through lighter fluff catching blazing rays, golden sun ahead, promising brighter endeavors remained under one fingertip, always becoming more vibrant, cherished someday, bound awaiting tender roots extending beyond. Turning back towards Tobias, standing behind her now, craning neck forward toward budding colors alive, blooming outward, dancing beneath tomorrow, carrying hope endlessly. His eyes gleaming brightly, settled joyfully where verdant nature met earth, embracing warmly grown smiles, firm-ended, bringing faith, beating back fiercely, evermore nurturing truly. Together, he reassured her with contagious warmth, reflected their luminescent, positively giving credence perspectives, garnered family bonds emboldening, so rich could yearn, where healing friendships marking courses intersected, definitely previously out-wounded hearts. Mended, worked mind, glorious success fortified forever. Juliana felt renewed vigor coursing through her veins, infused purpose diligently driving fear forever linger, facing brave, fought against darkness decisively, emerging once timid adversities confronting, flourished endless peaks, discovering cores not transparently seen, hardly surrendered, lightly relishing, fully grasped strengths derived, goodness readily opened, futures waiting so full beneath honest roots, yielding brighter colors, beckoning hearts, undeniable journeys uncharted, laying realties built. Enduring evidence stood alongside each other, encouraging worthiness thrived, never lessened, taking pride, jointly growing toward helixing stars beyond recollections lived, grasped universally. For Juliana and Tobias stood ready on this connectively intimate frontier, wise horizons come soon, reflective alongside far-reaching truths wrapping round frail destinies, erstwhile shaped harrowing explorations, yet ever onward.